All right, hey VC, I'm Jamie. Welcome back. We're back with another video. I'm back with more vinyl finds or too much vinyl, however way you want to take a look at it. But let's get right to it. Got a lot of records to show. An artist who recently passed away, Ian Tyson. This is Ian and Sylvia's Greatest Hits, double Greatest Hits album on Vanguard. Of course, featuring some classic tracks, and that continues on Ian and Sylvia's Greatest Hits Volume 2. Also a double album on Vanguard, so happy to pick those up. Happy to come across the Jam in the Wild, and this is a Jam EP called Four Side Effects. 4 tracks on this one, and I think this is an Australian press. Happy to find it in my area, but the Jam EP. This is a compilation on RCA Victor featuring RCA artists at the time. It's called The Group Quake. It features the Youngbloods, Joyful Noise, Group Therapy, The Family Tree. There's only about 8 tracks on here, so it's a very short album, and it's okay. It's kind of a very light psych pop or Baroque pop, but not bad. Interesting album. Okay, Canada's Tragically Hip, lots of reissues for this band, and this is a reissue of their first album, or first EP, simply called The Tragically Hip, featuring the late, great Gord Downie. This is a thrift store find. This is Sergio Mendes, just a self-titled album from 1975, and a lot of covers on here, including George Harrison's cover, or the Beatles' Here Comes the Sun. He also covers a number of Stevie Wonder tracks on here as well. Not bad, not great, but quite a funky back cover going on there. Okay, I found this one at my local record shop, a mono copy of The Byrds and Fifth Dimension, especially with David Crosby's recent passing, and it plays great. It's a nice shape, such a great album. Really happy to have picked that one up. Artist I enjoy, Donnie Iris. Donnie Iris had the big hit Leah. This is like his 3rd or 4th solo album. Donnie Iris and the Cruisers, The High and the Mighty. Not bad. He does a cover of Glad All Over on this one, but not any real big hits from this one, but not bad. Okay, 10cc, and this is Deceptive Bends with the iconic Hypnosis cover. This is when they were just down to about 2 members, but great 10cc sound, and The Things We Do for Love are featured on this one. This was also a thrift store find, the band Gonzalez and Shipwrecked. And I took a look at the cover. I was like, what is going on here? This is a UK soul R&B outfit. And don't let the cover fool you, because it certainly doesn't match the music. It's got a nice kind of soul thing going on. There's a little bit of a disco feel, because this is kind of mid to late 70s. And I understand this band would often... the members of the band would be able to assist any U.S. artists coming over to the U.K. if they needed extra band members or a backing band, that sort of thing. But a pleasant surprise to come across this, the band Gonzalez. Okay, this could fit in right in with the Warner Lost Leader compilations. This is a Warner compilation simply called Alternatives. And as you can see, you got Jimi Hendrix Experience, featured on this one. Who else? We got Neil Young, Arlo Guthrie, James Taylor, Grateful Dead. Just a single album. The Lost Leaders were generally double albums, but pretty pleased to come across this one. That was a unique find. Okay, a Canadian-American blues artist by the name of Amos Garrett, and this is some of his Canadian releases on Stony Plain. This is Go Cat, Go, because they say Gone Cat at the back, and he's got really kind of a nice laid-back, easygoing style. Amos Garrett, and then that was followed up by this album called Amos Behavin', and on this one he thanks Danny Lanois, or of course Daniel Lanois, who would go on to be producer extraordinaire, because parts of this album were recorded in Hamilton at the Grant Avenue Studios in Hamilton, and that was Daniel Lanois and his brother. They had that recording studio. Okay, another Canadian band that I really enjoy, the band Cano. This is their first album, and then followed by the album Rendezvous that came out years later. In fact, this Rendezvous is a promo copy. A kind of nice folk, progressive folk. Had some radio hits, but a really nice sound. Sang, of course, in both English and predominantly in French. And I did not know until recently that what Cano actually stood for. It stood for Collective Artists Northern Ontario. So the band was pretty much based in Sudbury, Ontario. So always happy to pick up any and all Cano albums. And I think that's got to be coming to a close on my Cano collection in terms of their albums. Okay, a band I was not familiar with, kind of a blind buy. This is The Joy of Cooking, and don't know too much about this group. In fact, there's no names with any of the photos on the back here, but they have kind of that nice kind of country rock style. Think sort of Janis Joplin's Me and Bobby McGee light, and this is kind of like early 70s. Not bad, and this was still in the shrink, interestingly enough. Okay, gotta love the Dave Clark 5, and this is Session with the Dave Clark 5, of course the signature of the original owner, and this is on the Capital 6000 series, and I've talked at length about this. This was designed for the Canadian market, so this is a Canadian press. The 6000 series featured UK international artists, also featured Canadian artists designed for the Canadian market. A number of covers on here, but the big hit, Can't You See That She's Mine? Okay, another John Cougar Mellencamp album. I do like John Cougar Mellencamp, especially, you know, his stuff from the 80s, early 90s. This one features the track Jackie Brown. And there you go. This is the band Synergy. This features Larry Fast, and this is a sequencer, and quite the interesting gatefold cover going on here. So it's kind of described as electronic or ambient style music. Does a cover of Classical Gas on here, but I do like the write-up inside. Do not be misled by your ears. This record contains material recorded solely with the electronic synthesizer equipment mentioned. No conventional instrumentation or sound effects were used, just so you know. So, yeah, it's not bad. Happy to pick it up, but there you go, Synergy. You can usually find Synergy albums pretty inexpensively. Okay, help me out with this one. Of course, so we know the band Climax Blues Band, but I'm not familiar where this fits in with their discography. This is on Sire Records. Judging from the track listing, this seems to match the tracks from their second album, but with some extra songs. So I don't know if this is like a North American release to their UK albums. There's the track listing there. And this album itself doesn't seem to show up in any of the discography. But if you know more about this album, please let me know. But it features, of course, the great early blues sound of the Climax Blues Band. Okay, Gary U.S. Bonds, a great soul R&B artist, had the hits Quarter to Three, New Orleans back in the 60s, and teaming up with Bruce Springsteen for a couple of albums, including this one, On the Line. So I think Bruce Springsteen writes or co-writes most of the tracks on here. It's got a great E Street Band sound, a number of members from the E Street Band featured on here. And I remember this when this came out, a friend of mine had picked this up. I wasn't quite familiar with Gary U.S. Bonds at the time. Really enjoyed this album, and happy to have it in the collection. Okay, we got some light country with Pure Prairie League and Dance. And we got some, well, maybe heavier southern rock, but still good time stuff with Molly Hatchet. This is Double Trouble Live. And I forgot that they did a cover of Freebird. And, of course, Flirting with Disaster on here. Double Live, Molly Hatchet. Okay, speaking of the Warner Lost Leaders, here we go with another one. Again, with the Lost Leaders, the covers are always like completely different. You never know what to expect. And we've got The Days of Wine and Vinyl. That's a great title. And again, featuring Warner or Reprise artists at the time. And they always had the nice, like, kind of, these were compilations that you mailed away for it, simply at $2 at the time. And so this one features Roxy Music. You got Norman Greenbaum, Arlo Guthrie, Alexis Corner, Bonnie Raitt, Jethro Tull, to name just a sample of the artists. And usually these Lost Leaders were double albums, but always, always interesting. Always happy to come across those. Okay, now this was a trip. Brian Auger's Oblivion Express. This is Live Oblivion Volume 2. I'm going to have to seek out Volume 1. Double album, double live album, but their cover of Inner City Blues, Marvin Gaye's Inner City Blues at 10 minutes and 20 seconds was an absolute trip. They also do Herbie Hancock's Maiden Voyage, but Brian Auger's Oblivion Express. Okay, an early best of Dave Mason. This doesn't have the hit We Just Disagree, but it's got Only You Know and I Know, and this is on Blue Thumb Records, hence the little Blue Thumb imprint there. So an early best of Dave Mason. And speaking of best of, we got Harry Chapin, The Anthology. This features pretty much in terms of the folk styles of Harry Chapin, pretty much what you want in terms of the hits or recognizable songs. And then a Harry Chapin live album. This is Live Legends of the Lost and Found. It featured a lot of new songs at the time, just a handful of favorites like Flowers Are Red. Wasn't even really familiar with this album, but a double live album. This was released during his lifetime from 1979. Okay, this is a sort of a jazz flautist by the name of Paul Horn. Paul Horn, famous for his album Inside, or Inside the Taj Mahal, where he literally plays inside the Taj Mahal, and it's incredibly ambient. And this is his album Visions, and he does a number of covers on this one. This came out in like 1974, so again with David Crosby's passing, he does Guinevere, also Long Time Gone. He also covers Joni Mitchell on this one. In fact, Joni Mitchell does appear on this album doing some vocalization, but the cover is created by an artist, Glenn Diaz, who would go on to perform in the band Rant Maggie Rant. He was also originally in the band Ptarmigan. And there you go. And Glenn Diaz designed this cover. And Glenn Diaz actually lives in Stratford. So I caught up with Glenn and showed him, hey, Glenn, I found this album. Because I remember you mentioning you did the cover for this. And so I got Glenn to autograph it. And so I think this is about the only, other than the Ptarmigan album I showed you, I think this is the only other album that Glenn Diaz has actually designed. But yeah, so happy to have that one. Okay, AC/DC, this is Fly on the Wall, or every time I look at this, is this Flow on the Wall or Fly on the Wall? Of course, with the little bug in the corner there that looks like something out of a Raid commercial. I was surprised how much I enjoyed this album. This from 1985. This is where I was kind of losing track with AC/DC once they got into the kind of late 80s, 90s. You've got Simon Wright on drums, but I was surprised how much I actually enjoyed that album. And I also was surprised how much I enjoyed this album. This is Bill Wyman and his first solo album, A Monkey Grip. He's got a handful of solo albums. This is everything you would want from a Bill Wyman solo album. Just good time, fun. There's a number of special guests on here. I believe Dr. John performs on here, and a few other great artists. Who else is also featured on here? This one comes with the original sleeve, which is very nice. But just a good time party kind of album. Dallas Taylor's on drums. You've got Leon Russell on piano. Lowell George plays lead guitar on here. Really enjoyed this album. I don't know if the same can be said for some of the other Bill Wyman solo albums, but if you come across Monkey Grip, you know, it complements the Stones catalog fairly well, surprisingly well. So Bill Wyman there. Okay, we've got a Canadian group by the name of Barefoot, and this is on. This is actually a reissue of their first album that was called Atkinson Denko, along with Brocky and Ford. Those are the band members. Dwayne Ford would go on to have a solo career. This features Terry Danko on bass guitar, and Terry Danko is the brother of Rick Danko, and it's got that kind of band feel, or certainly indicative of the music at the time, but really happy to come across this one. This is on Columbia, and I said their first album, I believe, was on a minor label, so then when they transferred to Columbia, they sort of reissued the first album and called the band Barefoot. So there you go. And they have just a handful of records. Okay, the Beacon Street Union. Wow, I was able to come across this one. Stereo copy of The Clown Died in Marvin Gardens. Some great kind of light psych rock or Baroque pop, if you will. Beacon Street Reunion. Okay, now here is an odd David Bowie find. I was not familiar with this. This is an early compilation called David Bowie Images 1966-67. So this basically spotlights his first album that was on the Daram or DRAM label, however you want to call it. So it's got the Laughing Gnome, that sort of novelty song, but it's got you know, all songs from that era. And I think this was basically capitalizing on his success on RCA when he was really starting to emerge as a big artist. So this came out in 1973. Some very interesting illustrations there, but a nice little early compilation for David Bowie find. It's got London Boys that he would later do on the album Toys, along with Karma Man. So yeah, happy to pick that one up. Okay, I am a Sammy Davis Jr. fan, and really happy to see Sammy Davis Jr. and Count Basie, Our Shining Hour. Great album, and I love the note here. Note to vocalists. For those of you who have sung with the Count Basie Band, and for those who will sing with the Basie Band, remember that Sammy Davis is the first to dance with the Basie Band. That's awesome. That is awesome. Okay, an interesting compilation, Canadian compilation. This is called Collage, and I believe this is like some sort of benefit for Bytown Festival for the folks or for the folk artists. I don't know if that was like a music festival or just a collective. And these are not live tracks; these are studio tracks. But this features Willie P. Bennett, Leona Boyd, Cano. Also features Bruce Coburn's on here, Valdy, David Whiffen. So a nice little Canadian kind of folky compilation. Okay, Ramsey Lewis. Like picking up Ramsey Lewis stuff. This is Ramsey Lewis in the album Don't It Feel Good. This is on Columbia. Maybe not as good as his stuff on Cadet. We're getting into the mid-70s here, 1975, but still enjoyable, but not quite as good as his Cadet stuff. Okay, some light Southern rock. We've got the Ozark Mountain Daredevils and Don't Look Down, indeed. Okay, Badfinger, later Badfinger album. This is Badfinger and Airwaves, and this is a promo copy on this one. Okay, another Jam album. I should have had this with my earlier Jam EP. And this is the Jam and the Gift of classic album. Fabulous from start to finish. Town Called Malice. Now, this doesn't include the original sort of bag sleeve that just had the gift on the outside. But, man, happy to have that one. Okay, a band I really am starting to really enjoy. I mean, the Youngbloods, great song with Get Together, but I'm really discovering just more and more of their albums, again, with Jesse Colin Young. And this is the album Rock Festival, so it's a live album, but it's interesting. If you were listening to it, you might not know it's live because the audience is really kind of not part of the mix, or at least mixed way, way down. You almost don't even hear them. It could almost be like a studio album. It's got that really kind of folk rock sound to it, very folky. Really enjoy the Youngbloods. Their albums are really fun to listen to. Okay, we've got Black Oak, Arkansas. It's a street party, and ironically, this is not a live album. It's a studio album, but they do a cover of Martha and the Vandellas, Dancing in the Streets, or Dancing in the Street is actually the title of the track, but they put a little extra S on there. Okay, we've got a budget Paul Revere and the Raiders album. This is a Paul Revere and the Raiders featuring Mark Lindsay, and this is basically like a budget compilation. This is on Harmony Records, which was a budget label for Columbia, for CBS. So this features some maybe not well-known singles or some of the lesser-known album tracks, that sort of thing. As a listen overall, it's not too bad, but no big hits on this one. Okay, always happy to come across the band Spooky Tooth, and I've got a Spooky Tooth compilation, a double compilation, of course, featuring Gary Wright. And I've got Spooky Tooth. This is The Mirror with the die-cut cover. Unfortunately, it's got a little tear there. And Spooky Tooth and the album Witness. Now, this is an alternate cover on this one. Usually, this is more like the style of the front jacket, but yeah, Spooky Tooth and Witness. Okay, great country sounds of Michael Nesmith, and this is Michael Nesmith and the First National Band, Nevada Fighter. Always happy to pick up Michael Nesmith. Always happy to pick up the Incredible String Band, and this is Hard Rope and Silken Twine. More folky or psych folk sounds of the Incredible String Band. And here's a Buddy Miles album I didn't even know existed. This is Buddy Miles' Regiment and Sneak Attack. And this came out in like the early 80s. And the one side is recorded at the CIM in California, and that was the penitentiary that Buddy Miles was a resident of. And I hope I didn't say Buddy Guy, but Buddy Miles and Regiment. And Sneak Attack. Quite the funky cover going on there. Okay, Robert Plant, and this is Shaken and Stirred. And this is Robert Plant on Warner from the mid-'80s. Not one of my favorite Robert Plant albums, and I'm kind of glad he got away from this sound. This really does have kind of an 80s sheen going on with this album, but nice to have as part of the collection. A very interesting 80s compilation. This is from the movie Electric Dreams, another movie I have not seen, but it's a great soundtrack. You've got now Giorgio Moroder's on here, but then you've also got Jeff Lynne. You've got Culture Club, and it's a number of songs that I think are exclusive to this soundtrack. Wasn't familiar with it before, but really happy to have this. Heaven 17's on here. Yeah. Okay, Canadian band, maybe fairly obscure. This is the band Garfield, not to be confused with the cat. This is Garfield and Out There Tonight. I would liken this band to kind of a light Styx. It has that kind of dramatic Dennis DeYoung feel to it in some of the songs. Not bad, but it has that kind of, proggy kind of feel, but not only sort of light prog, if you will, but Garfield. Okay, and this is the Robin Thompson Band. Robin Thompson was contemporary with Bruce Springsteen, and Bruce Springsteen's very first band. And so, yeah, this is the Robin Thompson Band. I guess Robin Thompson's got a lot of records out, and between both Robin Thompson and the Robin Thompson Band, and this is Two Bees Please. And it's got that kind of Bruce Springsteen sound. Maybe not obviously with the big horn section or anything like that, but it does have that kind of feel to it. Okay, the first Jefferson Airplane album, Take Off. This is simply on the Best Buy series, so this is kind of like a budget to reissue. But before Gray Slick, we had this album, Jefferson Airplane Takes Off. And a great cover of Tobacco Road on that one. Okay, we've got Valdy, a British artist that had his residency in Canada. And this is Silent Treatment, and he does a cover of the song The Sun Ain't Gonna Shine Anymore, which actually was a fairly big hit on Canadian radio, or at least got some play. Another James Taylor album. This is James Taylor and Flag. Not a lot of big hits on this one, but he does do the cover of Up on the Roof. That got some attention, but a very kind of straightforward cover there. Not a lot going on. Here, this one was kind of a blind buy. This is a UK kind of heavy rock or hard rock band called Baby Taku, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, Baby Taku, and it's good, actually. I really enjoyed this album. Again, I don't know a lot about this band. I think they maybe had a handful of albums. This is called Firstborn. There's the band there. If you know more about the band, please post in the comments. And this is from 1986 on Castle Communications, and this is a UK press. Okay, just a few more. This was another blind buy. Don't know much about this artist. Red Dragon and the album Bun Them with some really amazing graphics on the cover. This is pretty much kind of that sort of really heavy dub style reggae. I did enjoy this album. And again, don't know much about the artist. This was kind of a blind buy. It didn't cost very much, but did surprisingly enjoy that album. Okay, J.D. Souther, of course, has done lots of work with the Eagles and Linda Ronstadt. And, of course, his big hit really is this one, You're Only Lonely, the title track from this one. Also had a hit with James Taylor, Hurt Town 2. But J.D. Souther is one of those artists that I'm surprised didn't go on to really big things, because it had a great sound, great voice, and a great songwriter, too. Okay, we got a couple of Deep Purple albums. The one I really enjoy is Deep Purple and Stormbringer. I do like this period of Deep Purple post Ian Gillan, and this is a dynamite record. So yeah, David Coverdale on lead vocals, Stormbringer, Lady Double Dealer, a number of the songs that would turn up in made in Europe. But an album I did not enjoy was this one. This is Deep Purple and the album The House of Blue Light. And this was the follow-up to Perfect Strangers. Everything should have been on track, but I think the band was not getting along at this time. And this features, the classic lineup of the band featured with Ian Gillan, but I don't think Richie and Ian were getting along all that well. And this this album sadly just doesn't work. And you want it to work, but it just doesn't work. Okay, this was almost kind of a grail find for me. This album has eluded me for so long. This is the Northern Pikes, and this is the album Big Blue Sky, and this features the great track Teenland, great power pop from Canada, and this is a blue vinyl edition that's not always easy to find, but this is not a reissue. This was the blue vinyl at the time, so this is going back to the 80s for this one, like I want to say 87 on Virgin, but I'm a big fan of Northern Pikes, or at least, their first couple of albums. A band that is still going, but Northern Pikes. Happy to pick that up. I've seen that so many times, and it's been eluded me, or it gets sold, and so I was happy to come across that. Just a few more. We got the Great Kin Band, and this is Glass House Rock. Not a lot of big hits on this one. An odd cover of The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, which is an odd choice, but Greg Pin Band. I did pick this up. This was from a past record store day, but I didn't pick it up until now. Got this at my local record shop, Sound Fixation. It just kept, every time I go in there, it was one of those kind of staring me in the face. It's like I should pick it up, and sure enough, took the plunge. So this is the 50th anniversary limited edition, 2 LPs on clear vinyl. Original 1972 album recut from the master tapes, a record store day release, and I really enjoyed this album. If you're not familiar with Captain Beefheart, this is not a bad album to start. And what is it, the song, when I was listening to, I think it's the song Too Much Time, should have been a hit. It just has that great sound to it. So, again, I'll show you the clear vinyl here, and it's very clear vinyl. There you go. Okay, so Captain Beefheart and the Magic Band. Okay, and just a few more, as I mentioned. Happy to come across this one, Judas Priest Live. Yeah, double album, and of course, features pretty much what you want from Judas Priest, including Parental Guidance. I haven't heard that song in quite some time, so, pretty straightforward kind of cover, but it's got everything you need there. Judas Priest Live. And switching gears, we've got a great 60s band that completely gets forgotten about. The Buckingham's Greatest Hits. Had so many great songs on the radio, sort of that blue-eyed soul thing going on. You've got Don't You Care, Mercy, 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 Hey Baby, They're Playing Our Song, Kind of a Drag, Susan. Great. I mean, they had a lot of radio hits, and I was happy to pick this one up. A fairly obscure Canadian band, very much in the sort of prog rock. This is the band called Heads in the Sky. There's not a lot written about this group, but it's got a really nice kind of proggy thing, a proggy feel to it. So Canadian band, Heads in the Sky. That is quite the cover. And yeah, happy to pick that up. And last but not least, an unusual compilation. I guess this is part of a series. This is called Early LA Stereo. And so this features David Crosby, Canned Heat, The Byrds, amongst others here. And it's kind of a radio sort of compilation. And look who's doing the morning show here at KFWB 98, #1 in Los Angeles. The one and only Wink Martindale, of course, would go on to a game show host fame. But yeah, it's an interesting compilation. Okay, and I also picked this up. Oh my goodness, I haven't had a chance to play this yet, but I don't think I'm going to do an unboxing for this one, because there's just been so many unboxings on this one. But I'll do some sort of review or look back at this one. But of course, the Rolling Stones mono box, and this is the full color, the Rolling Stones in color. And oh my gosh, it's heavy, but that is my number there, and my number is looks like 8,103. Okay, but this will be fun to listen to, but yeah, it's got a good weight to it. Okay, so that's going to wrap it up for this one. Thanks so much for dropping by. Do take care. Bye-bye.